Oh, we're live. Hello, everyone. I do hope that you cannot hear my wonderful cat who is sitting on my lap licking his beans and moving between licking his beans and his nuts. Hopefully, you can only hear me and lovely Animal Crossing, and please tell me if the music is too loud or too quiet, and we will adjust accordingly as we dive into chapter 6 here. Tony Blees, says Dingo. Well, you know, Dingo, the last time I made an announcement in my Discord server that said, hey guys, in a moment, we're going to start reading Growing Around on live stream. Apparently, waiting a minute and then starting the stream was too long, or too short, actually, to be considered a moment. So I just cut out the middleman, my guy. I just cut it out entirely, and I said, we're streaming right fucking now. And then the stream started the second I posted the fucking Discord announcement. So you guys don't get to whine anymore that I take too long or too short after making an announcement to do a stream. We're just going. We're just going right in. I don't even care. I hope you guys are having a good time. We're just going in. Chapter 6. April lived by the woods in uptown Summerway. The crickets had come out by the time I got there, and the sun had turned the clouds into every shade of cotton candy. I thought that I was getting lost with all the strange twists and turns. It had been quite a while since I had been down that way. Before long, though, I saw April standing in front of the silver gate of her property. She was about to take a photograph of herself with her cell phone. The world of high fashion always confused me, but glow-stick earrings were the best clothing invention ever conceived. If I ever built up the courage to get my ears pierced, I'd never leave the house without them. The light bounced off of April's glittery top and her yellow rubber knee boots. All the while, butterfly wings strapped to her back bobbled in the breeze. Nice outfit, I said, hopping out of the car. Merci. It's necessary to wear something more casual once in a while. I noticed the camera hanging from her neck. I thought that we were going to photographs at your house, not in the middle of the woods, I said with a laugh. I told you, quiet is the best environment for taking photographs. Well, this environment is going to get us eaten by mosquitoes, I snickered. I stuck my tongue out. April tells the best jokes sometimes. I didn't know about photography, but I did know that lighting was important, and I didn't think that blinking fireflies would be enough. April rolled her eyes and walked to the passenger seat. Come on, April. It's a nice evening. Let's walk back to your house, I said. My driveway goes on for quarter of a mile, she said, and these boots have heels. You walk down here. Getting back shouldn't be too hard, right? Come on, tag, you're it. April swiped back at me but missed. I blew a raspberry and took a run down the cobblestone driveway, taking a break to swing around each lamp along the way. I needed to take in the atmosphere. Silvery blue fish jumped out of the nearby pond, and I wondered how April could possibly hate this place. The Morrison lands went on for acres. It used to be a farm hundreds of years ago, according to April. The soil was still good enough to grow magnificent trees, like the blooming magnolias that dotted the driveway or the willows that dipped into the waters. I got a good look every few minutes when April stopped to complain about her hurting feet. We came up to a 2-story building at the end of the driveway. I knocked on the door until April caught up. Sadly, that's the garage, April said, rubbing her boots. The house is beyond the bridge. It was a long time since I'd been there. I followed April's finger around the garage. A wooden bridge led to a huge willow tree on an island in the distance. It wasn't as big as the great tree of Summerway, but it could have been a close second. The lights inside made it seem like the tree was containing a bonfire. I stepped into the bridge. Everybody joining the stream. I hope you guys are having a good time. It's nice to see you. I apologize I'm not looking at the chat. You guys know how this goes. We're just going to read the story, but I would like to take just a smidgen of a break to realize that I don't have any water, and you always want to have water when you're live streaming, or you're going to be parched, especially when you're reading a book. Remember to stay hydrated, folks. It's real hot right now. But I hope you guys are having a good time. I always enjoy doing these read-throughs here. Hey, wait up. Ouch. If your feet hurt that bad, why didn't you drive down the road? I asked. Well, let's see if I can recall, April said, placing her foot down on the bridge. Allison took one of the ponies to a show. Thomas took the other one off to a race. Petty, if you ask me. Gemma took the other one to I don't know. Peter took a car to the theater. Jeffrey took another car to the mall. Kaylee disposed of my bicycle at the bottom of the lake. How many brothers and sisters do you have? I joked. 12, the last time I counted, April said, passing by me. And I believe that it's still the same number. Mom did say that the stork blacklisted our house. I walked along the bridge in quiet thought, unsure of how serious April was. April was hesitant to climb the rope ladder at the end of the bridge, so I easily raced past her. I grabbed the doorknob and felt a squish in my hands. My palm was now covered in red paint. April gave a small chuckle as she popped onto the balcony. Xavier thought today of all days would be pertinent to paint the door, as if it was unlike every other day, she huffed. I wiped the paint off onto my shirt. No, wait. I froze my hand a little too late. A look of annoyance crossed April's face. Ugh, Xavier has ruined countless shirts that way, she said. I'm going to have to change your shirt. Red is a tough paint to get out of clothes, practically impossible, I'm afraid. April pulled a handkerchief out of her pocket and opened the door. I smiled to thank her, but I was nearly pummeled into with my first steps inside. One of April's sisters just barely dodged me on her trek to the basement. Then I noticed the noise. It was almost like a marching band lived here. Considering how many siblings April had, that may have been the truth. Crashing plates played on top of the sounds of ripping fabric. Does someone here have party duty? I asked, bewildered. I do wish, April said as she walked down the stairs. If that were the case, we'd manage to get some peace and quiet around here. The stairs spiraled down around a large lava lamp into a cavernous room. April's sister got one of her brothers to join along into a race. They spun there's just a lot of words here. It is a book. They spun around the stairs, doing a fairly good job of dodging the beanbag chairs and stuffed animals. They didn't do as good of a job of dodging April, pile-driving her onto the floor. Hey sis, how's it going? The boy asked. Can you please do this somewhere else? April demanded. No can do, the girl said, jogging in place. It's too dark outside, and Coach says that I've got to spend each and every second keeping in tip-top condition. Wait, I know you, I said. You're Heather Morrison, one of Molly's favorite pillow fighters. Want an autograph? She said with a smile. That would be most joyous, but my bestie and I have much to do, April said, dragging me along and not even sparing her siblings a passing glance. April stretched her friendship bracelet in her hand as she walked. Questions over and... Oh, okay. All right. Yeah? Yeah, you can... Sorry, my cat has awoken from his slumber and has placed his butthole in my face. So we're not reading the book anymore. Now it's Butthole Town. Okay, now he jumped down. These are the things I have to live with. Always in Butthole Town half the time. Let's see, where were we? Where did I've lost my place here. Can you hear him? Can you hear him? Don't whine. Like, he jumps on the floor and then he looks up at me and he whines like it's my fucking fault that he's now on the floor. That's not even remotely true. Ugh. All right, let's see here. I've lost my place. Oh, here we go. Questions over what had just happened flooded my mind, but they melted as we entered her room. A half-domed ceiling skylight let me look straight up through the crystal pond and watch the koi fish swim by it. April walked by her oyster shell-framed bed and sat on the recline in the back end of the room. She fiddled with her camera under the light of a jellyfish lamp, hidden from most of the world by its tentacles. What was that about in the hallway? I asked, standing against the back shelf. Ugh. Once Heather starts prattling on about herself and all of her 50-odd medals, she never falls silent. It's almost as dreadful as Xavier. Yes, I know that your painting got accepted into a museum. Now please, Eris. I know, I have awful pronunciation. You know I can't speak French. French, right? April didn't answer. She was too lost in her own thoughts. I noticed the Seven magazine Julie Neptune cover from earlier taped up next to her vanity, buried with many other photos. They were celebrities, inventors, athletes. I remembered April bragging about taking them all, and all of the glorious kids she got to talk to. Hey, Sissy, I heard a voice from the hall. Where's Mommy and Daddy? At Vincent's concert, April snapped. Are you okay? I asked. I am extravagant today, thank you for asking. You don't seem okay. I'm fine. Either make a scene or don't be seen, April mumbled. and Vincent tends to throw a temper tantrum if he doesn't get his way. I wasn't asking about that. Don't you have anything nice to say about your brothers and sisters? They have plenty of nice things to say about them. I shot her a serious look, but she turned back down to her camera. I knew that she didn't really mean what she said. She must have been upset and distracted. Maybe coming here really wasn't for the best. My mind turned to Timmy with his restaurant and all of his accomplishments. I looked up to him a lot, but it wasn't hard for me to imagine that feeling twisted like it had been in April's mind. So are we ready to take a photo? I asked. April broke from her trance and immediately fell into another one. She turned to me with that glazy view that only April was able to get. She walked around, examining angles and ideas. Even if I tried to talk to her, she wouldn't answer me. She was... Kindle Cloud Reader. Are you for real right now? Like midway through chapter 6? Come on. What is this bullshit? I don't even feel bad that my email's up on screen because that's the business email that's on my fucking YouTube. You guys all gonna shoot me emails about my fucking Kindle Cloud Reader? Jesus Christ. Oh, what are you gonna do? That's really funny. That's really, really funny. Now I've lost my place again. What is it? What is it with this fucking chapter today, huh? Here we go. She was too far gone in this mode to that, moving through every possible picture in her mind. At long last, April blinked. That red handprint on your shirt is nothing but an eyesore. You need a new outfit. Now, she said. Huh? Why? I don't mind it. Yeah, but... April paused for a moment. Come with me. April walked to the bookshelf. She tapped and pushed the little trinkets until she came across a small book. She pulled at, and a latch unclicked. It was taken in by the presence of April's closet. It was as if April had taken every stitch of clothing in the city and placed it in this one spot. Now we have a selection, April said. Yeah, a lot of them, I said. By the time we go through all of these, we'll be too old for party duty. We won't go through every single one, April said. We're looking for one single solitary ensemble that says party girl, that says fun, that says responsible citizen. She threw a poncho plastered with owls over me. That look in April's eye told me that this wasn't the answer. Neither was the flower blossom dress, or the checkered print skirt and chest piece top. This went on for at least an hour before April finally gave up. The largest problem, according to April, was that these were all old fashions, and this outfit had to be new and fresh and exciting and daring and a million other little words. Too bad one of your siblings isn't a fashion designer, I joked. April stared at me for a solid minute, finishing off with a groan. Sarah's room is on the 3rd floor. Let's go. The two of us were off, jetting through the house. As we paced through the halls, my curiosity set itself upon the doors. What lay behind each of them and who lived there? One door was covered with wild slashes of color, probably Xavier's room. I tried to focus on everything, but April kept pulling me along. It may have been my imagination, but she almost broke into a jog as we passed by a trophy case. I couldn't help but stare at it as we moved on. Hey Sally, come on, snap out of it, April said. April was already on a rock climbing wall, heading to the 3rd story. As she turned around, I gave another side glance at the trophy case. April had never mentioned this thing before, and, with how much April talked about her accomplishments, it made me guess that not a single one of them were hers. We went through a door marked Sarah's room and stepped into a tornado disaster. Strips of fabric lay rolled across the floor, sprawling from pieces of furniture. The walls were covered with crude drawings of clothing. Curtains had several chunks missing from them. A little girl, 5 or 6, was cutting a piece of cloth in the back corner of the room. She wore a blue princess dress with a dark blue overcoat, topped with a bowler hat and a nice candy necklace. Each of her fingernails was a different color. With ideas like that, it was clear that she was the fashion designer of the family. The scissors cut a shape through the cloth, revealing the star-framed glasses behind them. "Oh, April," Sarah said. She stood up and eagerly approached her sister. She held up her latest creation at arm's length. Her voice boomed with pride. "You really need to try out my clothes. Everyone loves them." "No," April said. "I vastly prefer the Lindsay Bell fashion line." "You know she's like 2 years old, right?" Sarah said, crossing her arms. "Indeed. It makes her ideas so unique, she can't be behind the times if they didn't exist if she didn't exist before the times. Never mind. That's not why I'm here. I don't need clothes, but I know someone who does. April stepped aside and let Sarah see me. Her eyebrows shot up. I was hard to tell what that expression meant, but she stared long enough for me to feel uncomfortable. I gave a nervous wave, but it didn't ease the tension. I know who you are, Sarah said. Silly Sally, right? Those words shot at me like spit wads. The news had spread through quickly. I tried to say something, but the words couldn't escape my throat. April turned towards me, obviously unsure what to say. Sarah laughed. A chill went down my spine, but then something hit me. It wasn't an evil laugh. It wasn't a laugh that wanted to hurt me. It was a friendly laugh. It wanted to get me off edge. I saw what happened to you at Town Hall today, Sarah said. Then she paused to blow a pink bubble. Tallulah, right? I nodded and looked down. Just typical. Someone needs to take her down a peg. I can't see how a kid like that ever got to be mayor. Any enemy of Tallulah's is a friend of mine. Thanks, I said, rubbing my arm. April here was going to take some photos for me to use for my party. In those clothes? Sarah giggled. Well, that's why we're here. Alright, I get you. Hey, I know. That shirt is getting my creative juices flowing. Maybe we can get Xavier to put some more handprints on it and make it a style of its own. The latest Sarah Morrison invention. April bit her lip. She looked at me pleadingly and held her arms close to her body. After overshadowing April in everything, her siblings were about to wrestle away her best friend. If I were to accept Sarah's help, April would clearly be devastated. I couldn't just say no, though. If April was right, I needed to wear better clothes for this plan to work. Then my brain lit up with an idea. I don't know, I said. I never try out new fashions without consulting April first. She'll make the final judgment on this one. Fashion consultant? April asked. Yeah, totally, I said. I wrapped my arms around her and gave her a gentle squeeze. April always knows what's in brogue. It's Vogue, Sally, April said. See? How much more she knows than me? The only reason I'm not dressed up like her right now is because I could never do that look justice. You don't brush a hair on my head without April's say-so. April bit her lip again. A small smile creeped onto the corner of her lip, and her eyes glazed over. She was looking at me, but she wasn't really looking at me. I kept smiling, giving a hearty chuckle. Sarah joined me in the laughter, but neither one of us was really laughing. April joined us finally back down from Mars. Sarah, go get Xavier post-haste. We've got a lot of work to do. Time turned into a blur when Sarah returned with Xavier. I was pushed back into a chair, and the three of them got to work. Sarah tangled with my hair, going through the ponytails and pigtails and other more exotic styles. With every one, April gave a disapproving glance, and Sarah was back to the grind. At long last, April smiled. Sarah didn't appear very keen to this style. She held up a mirror. I had 3 pigtails, all going down over the left side of my head. They bobbed up and down as I moved. The height of glamour, April beamed. Are you sure? Sarah asked. I couldn't argue that I looked ridiculous. I took a deep breath, debating whether or not to smile. I already looked like the town fool, and this wouldn't help. In April's own words, this face would be plastered all over the town, but I couldn't crush April's spirit or fracture her smile. This is why April is my fashion consultant, I said, with a thumbs up. With the outfit on, I was against the wall. Xavier and Sarah stood watch, and April did her work. I had to look perfect, which meant that I had to stand back and stay still, and make sure to smile while placing my left hand on my hip. I was almost entirely through the entire hokey pokey by the time it was over, with April continually taking pictures on the way through. When the photos were taken, I found myself alone. Sarah and Xavier had followed April in order to see them fresh and developed. I brushed my hair back into its natural state and did up my ponytail once more. Then I returned the buttercup to its newfound home. What would people think by this time tomorrow? I gave a small chuckle, just thinking about how crazy it would get. I was then enveloped in a camera flash. Perfect, April said. April walked into the room, shaking up a Polaroid photo, the one she had just taken. I had this innocent and natural smile in it. Robert was right about the buttercup. It was the best photo that anyone had ever taken of me. Dear, you looked absolutely ridiculous with the 3 pigtails. I have no idea just what April was thinking, or Sarah was thinking. I keep mixing up their names. What's going on? I asked. You're a terrible liar, Sally Dunn, April said, her smile never wavering. We've known each other for how long? Fashion consultant. Why, that's a clever joke. We both know that Sally... Do you think I dyed my hair blue because I think that it looked good? Then why did you go on with all of this? I was enjoying it. Perhaps a little too much, April said. It's not too often that someone picks me of all kids above, you know. Thank you. Truly. Just don't try to do something like that again, I said with a wink. I still want your help with this, though. April nodded. Hey, April, there's a couple of kids in a pickup truck full of party supplies. They told me that they were here for Sally. I whitened up. Timmy must have called up Molly for a ride. Why did I tell Robert where I went? Talking to Timmy right now was the last thing in the world that I wanted to do. I stood there shaking until a hand rested on my shoulder. Go on. Talk to him. He'll understand you, April said. All right. How do we get out of here? I asked. Water slide is the 3rd door to the right. Should take us right out into the pond. The twisted tubes gave way to open air and I splashed into the water. I saw fragments of the pickup truck as the fireflies blinked to life. Molly and Timmy had turned to us as soon as the splash shot through the air. Timmy yelled something to me, but I couldn't hear it over April's splash. I doggy paddled to the shore. From the ground, Timmy's face was obscured by darkness. Want to swim? Water's great, I said, shivering. I saw the news today, Timmy said. I heard, what the mayor said about you. Crickets filled the silence. Timmy's knuckles clenched. The corners of his mouth broke into a grimace. This is what I had feared. I needed to say something, if only to prevent someone from getting hurt, or Timmy getting in trouble. It's not true. I am throwing a party, I said, getting to my feet. I saw tears coating Timmy's cheeks. What? That's not what I'm mad about. I heard what she called you. I saw her with Carmichael. Timmy grabbed me out of the blue. After the surprise wore off, I realized that it was a hug. Timmy held me tightly, unsure what else to do. I returned the favor. Another tear ran down my shoulder. I was worried about you, he said. I'm still worried about you. It's okay, I said. We're going to throw the bestest party that Summerway has ever seen and make Tallulah look like the liar that she is. I don't think that my reassurance worked. Any attempts to comfort Timmy tend to be futile. I know that he wouldn't rest easy until this whole ordeal was over with. Molly honked the truck's horn. We had a party to finish setting up. Alright. Look back at the chat here. You made me choose between cleaning my apartment or reading this. I honestly would pick cleaning, and I don't like cleaning. If you made me choose between that, you know? Apartment cleaning can be fun. It's a good time waster, and it makes you feel good when you're done. Take a sip every time Tony mispronounces Carmichael. Nah, dude. I get that it's Carmichael, but Carmichael is better. Anyway, let me throw up the screen-a-roni. It's always at the meteor section by the time I finish these chapters. At least I've noticed it's always that way. Let me go ahead and make sure Animal Crossing is still going. It is. Alright, so what happened? I wasn't paying attention the entire time since Super Crazy Crasher. You know, I actually, after coming off of that last chapter, if you joined us on the last chapter where I just had an absolute awful time, the chapter was just dog shit mixed with the fact that I wasn't feeling 100%. I realized I was kind of sick after I finished up the stream. But let me tell you, this chapter I thought was actually pretty good. I genuinely thought that it was probably better than almost all of the other chapters. And before I really dive into why I think that, maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit, I would like to point out there was someone who left a comment on my stream when I posted it, when the stream was over. Somebody left a comment on the video, and it said something along the lines of, wow, we've already read 50% of this book, and literally just now the villain has entered the story. And, let me actually... No, I can't see who wrote the comment right this second, but If you are on this stream now, or you comment on the next one, um, you really bring up a good point, which is it has taken this story until 50% of the way through, for for the villain to pop up, which really gives you just an idea of how much is happening and how much isn't happening. Like, there's so much shit going on, but literally nothing at the same fucking time. you know? But I will say, I did kind of enjoy this chapter. I think, compared to the descriptions of Sally's house, the descriptions were just better. Sally's house is very hard to visually just visualize, just visually imagine. It's just very difficult given what we've read in the book so far. But genuinely, I don't know if you guys agree with me. Genuinely, I felt like April's house was a little easier to understand. I kind of got the idea and I thought that the establishing text in this chapter was a little better. He used units of measurement that were just things that are real. It wasn't like, and then there was a giant bouncy castle and it was 3 iguanas high. This chapter had a lot of stuff that was easy to visualize and a little less of the stupid descriptor words that just didn't make any sense, right? So I was able to visualize this really long cobblestone driveway and this sort of 2-story building, which we were led to believe was the house, but it's actually the garage. And then we look past that and there's like a little island surrounded by a forest, right? And there's a sort of castle type treehouse doodad on the center of the island, and it's very, very tall, and that's easy to visualize. I felt like it was pretty easy for me to understand that they are extremely rich to the point where they kind of own like a small town, just in terms of size, really. I mean, they said it was a few acres, but you kind of get the idea. It's maybe a little bigger than that. And I guess even acres was very helpful. How is it that Enter can commit to writing a novel, yet refuses to brush his teeth because he doesn't know the right way? Not lying, he actually said that. I don't know about Mr. Enter's hygiene. I would not know. I'm just here to critique his book and say whether or not I think it's decent. And as of right now, I'm having a pretty decent time. The last chapter was dog shit, so this one was actually, pretty good breath of fresh air. I'm gonna be a little cynical. I really wonder. I haven't actually seen this show. I've never taken the time to sit down and watch it because I just have so much stuff to watch. I've never watched The Loud House, which, to my knowledge, is a show about a boy who's got like a bajillion, sisters, right? And I think I'm a sucker for stories where it's like a family that's got like a bajillion kids and they're all like vaguely the same age, or just stories that have a lot of kids interacting in one household, because it's a very relatable thing, even if you only have like one sibling like me, it's easy to imagine what it would be like to have 11, and that sort of craziness is super easy to write about and super interesting as a story telling device, even though it is maybe a little overdone at this point. Okay, so I think me acknowledging that I do enjoy that type of thematic storytelling really helps this chapter out and sort of gives you an idea of why I kind of enjoy it. Because April's got like a bajillion siblings, 12, so there's 13 kids total, and that's pretty funny. And us sort of, it also helps the visualization. Like, I can imagine Sally walking through this house and all the doors are just like a stereotype of, representative of the child. Like, this door is covered in paint, so the kid's a painter. This one's got a bunch of bad dragon dildos, so very clearly he's a furry, etc., etc. So that sort of thing is easy to visualize, going back again to how this is so much different from the description of like Sally or even just the town of Summerway in general. I think that Mr. Enter actually is able to succeed, and this is going to sound really weird. If this story was literally just about Sally's family, or April's family through the lens of Sally, if this was just like Sally visiting and the whole book was just her for a few days, maybe he could have made something usable. I think this chapter is good enough that he could have maybe fleshed this out to a full thing. I'm really giving this chapter praise. I know that sounds so dumb. I know it sounds really stupid. But maybe. Is it just good when you put it up against the absolute garbage that was the last chapter? You know, there is that. There is that to consider. But genuinely, I'm trying to, you know when people get out of a movie and they're like, that's the best movie I've ever seen, right? Because they haven't had enough time for their brain to think about it and to really realize, you know, Transformers 3 really wasn't the best movie that I've ever seen coming out of the theater. So I'm really trying not to oversell myself here. I know I'm failing. Or oversell the chapter, I guess I should say. I genuinely do think this chapter was really good. But the bar is so very low. You are correct. The last chapter was horrible, but there were other chapters that were pretty decent, okay? You know, there were some other chapters that were decent, and I think this one is probably better than them. If I read this chapter and then the other one where Tallulah was introduced back to back, because I remember that one being very good, perhaps I could compare the two of them, but I do think that this one presents enough of an interesting environment and an interesting set of characters for me to be invested and to give a shit, okay? So that is what I think are the positives. There's a lot of positives here. I think the story is at least progressing. You know, we can say that this chapter actually progressed the story. She went and met with her friends, and then she met with Timmy. You know, she got the photo taken, which will then be put over town, so this is setting the seeds of what will happen in the next chapter. Hopefully, I cross my fucking fingers. And then she meets with Timmy, and we understand that now Timmy knows the thing that she has been worrying about since the Tallulah thing is now, you know, not going to worry her, and she can really focus on the party, which is the whole point of the goddamn book. So the Timmy thing is now resolved. Is it resolved a little too easy? Maybe, but this is a book, you know, that's supposed to be for children, and the whole Timmy thing is not really the biggest deal in the world. So stuff is happening here. Now let's see here. I mean, sure, a small part of it might be because of his diagnosis, but what I think is really holding him back is his own laziness and stubbornness. The brushing teeth thing. I'm gonna go off a tangent from the book for a second. Again, I'm not here to talk about Mr. Enter, but I will say in general, his job is to do YouTube, right? And this is not to excuse his behavior. You know, you should brush your teeth every day, all right? You know, it's just a thing that you should do. Probably more than once, really. You know, at least like twice. Once when you wake up and then once before you go to bed. But I understand that a lot of people just do it once a day. So when you don't have reasons to go outside or to be presentable, things like hygiene tend to leave people. And that is why when you have kids who are in college or in high school and they don't have a job, you know, they're done for the summer, you know, they kind of just sit around and don't really change their clothes for a couple days at a time and don't brush their teeth or shower, you know, because they don't have anywhere to be. Now, I'm bringing that back to, you know, to Mr. Enter, because he does YouTube as a job, right? Like, I have to go to work every day. Every day, 5 days a day, I wake up and I go to a 9-to-5 office job. I have to have, you know, office attire ready to go. I have to be very presentable with a good haircut and you know, and look decent, right? Because that's what I do to survive. That's how I make my money. You know, this YouTube thing, I do this for fun. I do this because, you know, if I can find the time in between working, you know, because they give me work to do over the weekend too. If I find time over weekends, I can five days a week. You know what I mean? Then I do this. But for Mr. Enter, this is a job, right? Making videos, editing them, all of that. That's his job. So, you know, he doesn't have to go anywhere. And at that point, why would he even have to bother to shower or anything? It's not an excuse. I'm not trying to excuse being admittedly kind of yucky. That's kind of a yucky thing to do, right? but I can I can get it, right? Like I can understand it. So I'm not gonna sit here and be like, like I'm gonna fucking clutch my pearls and be upset that some guy I don't even fucking know doesn't shower or brush his teeth. I don't fucking care, dude. But let's try to. It's a little maybe more forgivable. Is it kind of yucky? Yeah, but whatever. He doesn't even edit. He pays someone because his editing is atrocious. Yeah, he does pay an editor. That's true. But I mean, what are you gonna do? Now I'm gonna bring it over to you guys. Please tell me what you thought about this chapter. Did you guys think it was good? Did you think it was bad? If you think it was bad, hold off on why you thought it was bad, because I'm gonna tell you why I think it was bad, and then what I thought was bad in it. I didn't think the chapter was bad, but it had negatives in it. So if you guys want to go ahead and dive in, he at least pays his editors. People not getting paid is what I deal with every day. For those of you who don't know, I work for the union, the labor union. So dealing with people not receiving their pay is a thing that I have to deal with fairly often. Helping workers to receive their pay is part of my job. I'm actually more curious about how bad the last chapter was because I missed that live stream. Oh, you should go back and watch it. It's posted on the channel. It's part 5 of this read through. I really should change the title of these videos to just say like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, because I am going one chapter at a time. But it's part 5. It was actually really bad, like genuinely horrible. But then again, I was actually sick after it, so that really just made it way worse for me. But genuinely, it was a garbage chapter. You should definitely go check that out if you have some time. I was too excited about being in your stream again after a long while to pay attention to the book. That's very sweet, Dino. So you are welcome. You are welcome to do that. I at least appreciate you giving me a reason. That's fine. I just like that you're here. You don't even have to pay attention. You're here, and that's enough for me. It tickled me under the chin, says Super Crazy Crasher. That's nice. There are worse places it could have tickled you. You know what I mean? One small bit of good in a sea of meh doesn't make up for all the meh. No, that's certainly true. This one chapter being pretty decent does not make up for the rest of the book. That is certainly true. If you are fed nothing but shit all day and then you're given a banana halfway through the day, does that, by the same person who's feeding you the shit, does that make them a good person? Not really. They're feeding you shit, but, it's at least something halfway decent in your day. Oh my goodness. Genuinely, I will try to think of bad things here. Very clearly you guys are struggling to think of good things, which is a-okay with me. I know that for you guys to hear this for me is very difficult, just the book itself, and it's really hard to sort of focus your thoughts. And I know it's way easier to just shit talk. So let me go ahead and think of the negatives here, guys. I honestly zoned out most of the chapter. That's understandable. These chapters are very easy to zone out on because you don't really expect anything to happen. One thing I will say, do any of these kids have accents? They do. Presumably. April, I assume, has a French accent because she speaks French. Am I going to give these children an accent? No. No, I'm not doing that, no. But I always assumed that she has one. But you never know. So let's see here. Fuck, I lost my train of thought. I actually did have a negative I wanted to address. And now I've lost it. It's unfortunate. I still think a book like this would be more palatable if it was told from the point of view of someone from the real world. Oh, you mean like our world? Or you mean you're looking for a Luke Skywalker in a Star Wars, right? So you think that the main character is not relatable enough, right? You think the world itself is too wacky for you to... Oh, I see. You mean our world, like actually our world. Well, at that point, I'll have to disagree with you. Whether or not the book is palatable doesn't matter, right? When it comes to this sort of thought. At this point, you are stretching what can be genuinely expected here. What you're asking for is something that is not something this universe can really offer, right? That's like saying, I wish someone from our universe was in Star Wars and that we got to watch that from their perspective, right? Like, that's a little too fan fiction-y for me to really agree with you. But like, if you're taught, oh, okay, someone to relate to. So yeah, okay, I get what you're saying now. Okay. There's a difference between, someone to relate to and then someone from our world. But if you want someone who's relatable, I will say this, it is probably going to be an adult character. I think this book was written strictly for children, a little less so for people who are maybe not less than the age of 10. So the child character of Sally was most likely chosen to take over the role of being in charge. But if I had to take your suggestion of someone more relatable, it's probably going to be Linda. It's probably going to be an adult, because an adult is going to understand that this world is maybe a little bit fucky, right? Because we all know it is. This world is kind of messed up. Weird shit happens and it shouldn't, because kids are in charge and whatever. And that actually is the perspective that we are supposed to be following in the what would have been the animated series had that Kickstarter, Indiegogo or whatever, worked out. So I guess he did learn that perhaps Sally as the main character was not a good idea. So we can at least say that Mr. Enter at least learned a little bit. So let's see here. I think that this would be way better if everyone had a Russian accent. I think most things would be better if they had an Australian accent. I'm a sucker for Australian accents. You know how people really like British accents? Or people really think that French accents are really sexy, I don't really give a shit about any accent that's not Australian. I really fucking love Australian accents, dude. I think they're so fucking funny. I love the way, and I'm talking stereotypical Australians. Their accents are pretty funny. The kind of thing that comedians will make fun of. Stereotypical accents, the most ridiculously stereotyped Australian accent in the world. That's what I want. That's what I wish I had. I wish I could just say oi all the time. But, what are you gonna do? Fuck, I'm really, I really gave this chapter a lot of praise. So I guess it is gonna take a second for me to think of a negative here. I guess the main negative of this chapter is that the main goal of the chapter is too vague. And I want to sort of explain what I mean by that, because I know that's kind of a vague statement. And every sort of chapter in a book should have, something sort of happening in it, or else the chapter is useless. And this chapter did have stuff going on. Like I mentioned, she got her picture taken, and she, talked with Timmy, which is, important as well. But I think what really, would have made this chapter even better for me would be if the Timmy thing didn't happen yet. I think this chapter would have been a little better, and just better for the pacing in general, if instead of at the very end we got a thing with Timmy. I think it would have been better if April went up to Sally, after they did the interaction about the Polaroid, and Sally was like, okay, what are we going to do with this photo? And then we were told, the audience was told through April and Sally talking what's going to happen with this photo, right? And then, after that happened, the car sort of rolls up and Timmy is coming, right? And then we just sort of leave it at that, right before they go downstairs to see Timmy. She would say, okay, how do we get down to the ground floor? And then April says the water slide is 3 doors to the right. And then that was it. And then the chapter ended there. I think that would have been a little better for the pacing, because I think the goal of the chapter would have been very clear, which was figure out what's going on with the picture, get it taken, learn what's going to happen with it. And that, that really relates to the rest of the chapter as a whole, right? If that was at the very end where we learn what the picture is for, that sort of justifies the entire chapter, because the whole chapter is about her getting the picture. As it stands now, the pacing is a little weird, because we go from everything about this photo to all of a sudden now Timmy is here and that's like a big moment. And I mean, that moment was pretty okay, but I think it would have been better if we were teased that just a smidge. We already had a goal completed, then we're teased to a new thing, and that's the beginning of the next chapter. So that, I will say, the pacing in this chapter is a little off for me. Certainly not as horrible as some of the other chapters. Basically, any chapter that takes place at Sally's house has horrific pacing with goals that just do not fucking work for the setting. But let me look at the chat again, because I've just been a little... The negative is that the rest of the book is worse. I mean, we don't know that. The book might actually have... I understand that people love to shit on this book, and people love to shit on Mr. Enter. I get that, right? I really do understand that. But the whole point of this is, I'm reading this not to shit here. I'm not here to shit talk. I'm here to look at the peaks and valleys of this book. And right now, we are at a peak. And I'm really hoping that the book can sort of, stay at a peak for a little bit. But I'm not gonna bullshit you guys. I know that so far this book has been kind of bad. I know the book is bad. Is it the worst thing I've ever read? No, not even close. This thing isn't horrible. This is like 3.5, 4 out of 10 on my scale. My scale, by the way, 5 is average. So a 4 is slightly below average. A 3 is, pretty bad. A 2 is god awful, and a 1 is just like irredeemable, right? My scale does not start at a 7 being average, because that's fucking stupid. So it's really not horrendous, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to bullshit you guys. I know that this book isn't very good, and I'm not expecting the rest of it to be amazing, but I would like to acknowledge that we are at peaks and valleys here, and right now we're at a peak, and I'm hoping that, we don't hit a fucking valley in a second. Tony, would you consider doing a Let's Play on Yandere Simulator? I'm curious to see what you would think of it. I would never want to do a Let's Play of Yandere Simulator, and there are a few reasons for that. I'm sorry if that's a thing you'd like to see me do. I can't remember them now, but a couple of years ago, when Yandere Simulator was a little bigger, I looked into it, and I took a look at the fucking guy who made it, and I don't remember the specifics now, but I remember reading about how much of a dick he was, and I told myself I would never want to give this guy any fucking attention because of how much of a piece of shit he was. I really wish I could remember the specific of what I learned about the developer of Yandere Simulator, but at that point I just told myself, why would I give this fucking piece of garbage even, I know I'm not an idiot, guys. I know that I'm not fucking PewDiePie. I don't have 1 million people watching me all the time, right? Like, I know my audience is small. Like, I get that, right? But even if one of you guys was introduced to someone that I felt was just did not deserve any attention, that's just, I wouldn't want to do that. And I guess you could argue, oh, I'm giving Mr. Enter attention right now because I'm reading about his book, right? I don't know. It's a little different because I don't think he's some deplorable human being who I don't want to, like, financially support, right? I mean, I bought his fucking book. I don't really mind that I spent like $8 to purchase this book for you guys. I really don't mind. Tony, what would you do if you were reading the book and one of the pages was your face? I'd asked how he would get a picture of my face and why he would pop it in there. That just seems like something that's gonna, people are not going to want to read the book. People are not going to want to read the book with my face in there. I'm not good enough to be in a book, I'm sorry. What is a 0 out of 10 for you, Tony? In terms of literature, I mean, I don't read very many books. If I had to... It's really hard for me to give something a 0 out of 10. Because that means it's just, like, completely cannot be fixed, really. But... who knows? I'll have to come back to that, maybe. Though it's boring and hard to read, I appreciate the fact that Mr. Enter wrote it. It's so bad he is unable to take constructive feedback, though. Yeah, that's true. We all know Yandere Dev is terrible. If you read some of the Enter's DeviantArt post and saw his recent art, you might not want to keep reading this. I mean, that's true. That's true. But I do think that it is important to give a platform to certain horrible people. I'm going to take another tangent here. If you don't know the tale of Randy Stair, I will give you guys a general idea of who Randy Stair is. Randy Stair is a boy who couldn't make it big on YouTube and get the sort of attention. He got a little bit of attention on the early days of YouTube because he happened to know a popular YouTuber at the time, and that gave him kind of a small audience. But he was never really, after that big YouTuber moved on from doing collaborations with him, Randy Stair was not able to sort of keep an audience that he was happy with. He wasn't able to grow, and he felt kind of shunned. It would be like if you all of a sudden had 10,000 subscribers, and but then you just you didn't keep them. They all just left, right? And that's with him trying. It's not like with me where I don't really make content anymore, so I understand why I don't have a huge audience, right? Like I'm not bullshitting myself here. Like I should be the biggest boy on YouTube because I read Mr. Enter's book once a fucking month. Actually, twice a month. The last one I did was on the 14th, and it's now the 28th, so twice a month. You're welcome, YouTube. I know, I'm the best content creator here, right? So Randy Stair made content, and he was constantly just pumping out videos. They weren't very good. People weren't watching them. He wasn't getting the attention he wanted, and that coupled with his sort of failure with his social life at school. This is a high school kid, and, just in general, not being very popular, kind of antisocial, being kind of a huge weenie. He kind of went into a bit of a depression. He wasn't able to do well on YouTube, being the main thing I would say was his cause for this. And he became a little bit insane, as a lot of crazy people do. He was genuinely a little fucked up in the head, and he watched Danny Phantom and the character of Ember McLean, who, if you don't remember what she looks like, I'll pop that up right here. Let me just go ahead and pop her up on the screen. Ember McLean. Here she is. Give me 1 second, guys. Oh, why is she fat? Is that on DeviantArt? Is that a fat Ember from Deviant? I'm sorry, guys. There's like weird pictures popping up here. Make sure there's no porn popping up. So this is Ember McLean from Danny Phantom. Randy Stair became sort of infatuated with her, and basically convinced himself that if he murdered a bunch of people and then killed himself, he would become a cutie Danny Phantom ghost girl. So he wrote a wacky manifesto, and then he went to his local grocery store where he worked, and then shot up the place and killed himself. And presumably right now he is a spooky ghost girl who can feel up his own titties, and he's having a great time. Now, very clearly from what I've told you, this very cursory, sort of surface level description of this human being, you can assume he's crazy, right? He's crazy. He's insane. Why would you give a platform to someone like that? Why would you talk about him? Why would you even mention him after what you said, about the Yondera dev? Well, I think that Randy Stair is such a pathetic piece of fucking human garbage that it's important to talk about how much of a piece of garbage he is so that other people realize, man, he's a fucking loser and I don't want to be like him. So I guess that, on a certain level of self-awareness, thank goodness I'm not Randy Stair. That's enough reason to sort of show off Randy Stair. But I know it's a little hypocritical of me to talk about Randy Stair but not want to talk about the Yondera dev. But I can be a little hypocritical sometimes. Every human is. I'm not perfect. Certainly not. I'm just a fucking loser sitting in his goddamn apartment reading fucking Growing Around Party Panic. Once a month, every month. What are you gonna do? Always with Animal Crossing music in the background, because Animal Crossing music just it's beautiful. Randy Stair is hilarious. If you guys really want a great story, please look into the tale of Randy Stair. You can actually find his entire manifesto that he wrote about how you can become a big titty Danny Phantom GF, and I assure you, his manifesto is it is a treat to read. I would certainly never read it on stream. Don't even ask. But fuck me, it's very long. It's it's not just the manifesto, because there's a lot of videos associated with it, and you'd have to go through those too to really get the full story of Randy Stair. But he's something else. Maybe the real adventure were the Randy Stairs we made along the way. Yes. 50 shots and he killed just 3 people. He couldn't even do that right. Yeah, he couldn't really do anything right. I know it's kind of... Listen, I'm not trying to poke fun at the dead, right? The 3 people who were killed that day. Was it... Did he kill 2 people and then himself, or was it 3 people and then himself? I'm just going to say he killed 3 people. I don't want to look it up right now. You know, I'm not trying to sort of lighten what happened to those people. That was a tragedy, and they did not deserve to die just because some fucking disgusting piece of human garbage wanted to be a fucking ghost GF, right? Those people didn't deserve that. Nobody would deserve something like that. But it's hilarious. Randy Stair went to the supermarket that he worked at, so he already knew the time schedules, when it was open, the times people would and wouldn't be there, so he knew the environment perfect down to a science, and he planned everything out well in advance, years in advance, or maybe it was a few months, but let's say years, because he was doing this for a long time. He had shotguns, which, you know, shotguns kind of have a big spread. Shotguns are kind of make it easy to hit your target when you're at a short range, i.e. inside a supermarket. And he shot like 50 fucking rounds, like someone in the comments just said, Dravenwolf just said, and he only killed 3 people, because there were more people there. He was trying to kill like anybody he could find in there. And he shot a bajillion fucking shots, and he missed like every single one of them, because he was just... And he practiced at a shooting range all the fucking time in preparation for this fucking mass murder, and he just couldn't fucking hit anybody, because he's just that pathetic of a piece of shit to hit anyone. But that has nothing to do with growing around Party Panic, which I would like to say, again, pleasantly surprised by this chapter. I hope you guys enjoyed this read through. I know that I posted this right the fuck out of nowhere. I like to keep you guys on your toes. I like to keep you guys on your toes as to what's going on here. I hope you guys had a good time. I'm actually genuinely kind of excited for when we read the next chapter, because I want to know if we are going to maintain this peak, or if we're just going to just nosedive straight into a valley. So I hope you guys had a good time. I'll see you on the next stream, and you guys have a great rest of your day.